What's up, everybody? Hello. Welcome to another episode of the Hustling Sideways podcast. I'm Alan Halas. I'm a music writer from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
And I'm Jim Love, and I'm a keynote and motivational speaker who lives in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
And this is episode 62 of the Hustling Sideways podcast. We are once again fully remote today. All three of us are going to be, bouncing around from all over the Midwest, really. But Jim, I just saw Jim literally yesterday. So
you did? Yes. Yeah, we have separation anxiety now after doing a lot of this. So I just have to, whether it's on camera or in person, I just have to see Alan. We usually do about 6 times a day. We just kind of check in and, call each other, the whole thing.
Anything less than 6, and we start to get really worried about the other one's well-being. So that's just kind of where we're at now in life.
We all know how irresponsible Alan is. So I just have to keep tabs on him. Typically is kind of my angle, but it works out. But now we're excited. I actually, if you saw my host show, I just got back from I did a quick 4:10 p.m. workout and then got back for this pod. So I feel good. I'm sweating. I'm ready to rock. And that's Milwaukee summer there for you.
Yeah. Okay. So the last time we did a fully remote pod, I had just come back from a run. And so this time you're the one coming back from a workout.
That's right. Yeah. I lost track of time and I was like, it's 4:45. I should probably go home. And then here I am, and it worked out pretty well.
So the key, the behind the scenes key here is when we have an episode where we're fully remote, it means one of us is really sweaty, I guess.
That's right. And the other one just doesn't care to go over to Alan's house, and that's me. So that's it.
Well, that's true. No, well, thankfully, our guest today is checking in from Nashville, Tennessee. He does not have to smell either one of us, so that's pretty great. Because we have Bryan Clayton, the CEO of GreenPal. It's an app that is essentially the Uber of lawn mowing. So welcome, Bryan. Welcome to Hustling Sideways.
Alan and Jim, thanks for having me on. It's great to be here. I love the title of your show, Hustling Sideways. I also like the breaking and entering Milwaukee that you have in the background. That's what starting a business is like breaking and entering.
Yeah.
You don't have to ask for permission from anybody to start a business.
That's right.
That is my business. And so it's a music website that I run, but now, you were onto something here. You can apply that to anything in your life.
Anywhere. And we've talked about how Alan's been told no from sponsors because they were like, "Is this a criminal website? Are you actually going to come in and But you've proven that wrong here, Bryan. I also want to say that from a new homeowner myself, the Uber of lawn mowing sounds like an amazing thing, and I can't wait to hear more about that because I'm going to probably start utilizing it. So
right on. Sounds good. Yeah. I'm CEO of a company called GreenPal, which is the Uber of lawn care. Yeah, so if you live in any city in the United States with over 10,000 people, you can download our app and you get hooked up with a good lawn mowing service in a couple of minutes. Rather than calling around on Craigslist or something, you can just order it like an Uber or like you're ordering something on Amazon right from your smartphone.
This is a great idea, especially because I hate cutting the lawn.
Do.
Jim has seen my house. The lawn needs some work. But before we get too far into GreenPal and how everything started, I want to know a little bit about your background. Are you a native of Nashville? Did you grow up there? And were you an entrepreneurial spirit growing up?
Yeah, so I grew up in a town called Murfreesboro, Tennessee, which is about 40 miles outside of Nashville. And I started my first business when I was 15 because I was forced to. My dad got tired of watching me waste the good summer days on playing Super Mario Kart. And he said, hey, he interrupted me one day and he said, hey, get off your butt. I got a gig for you. You're going to go mow the neighbor's yard. He made me go mow the neighbor's lawn. I was not living in a Democratic household. This was a direct order. So begrudgingly, I went over there and cut the neighbor's lawn, and I got paid $20. And I thought, man, this is awesome. He was right. This is incredible. I can just do this and not have to hassle my folks for money. I'm sold. So I remember the first thing was 1995. I got on my old school, back then it was new school, but now looking back, old school desktop computer and using clip art and Microsoft Works. The crappy version was Word. No, Works, Microsoft Works. Made a flyer and passed it out all over the neighborhood and got a few customers and I was just off and going. And I just ran that little lawn mowing business all through high school, and I loved it because I always had like more cash than my friends, and I was always able to buy the stuff I wanted to buy. Like I remember one year, um, there was a really good pair of soccer cleats that I wanted that was like $110. Back then, that was like today's money, like $300. And I was able to buy them because I was mowing yards to make the money. So that felt really good. And like it stuck with me. And I just kept with that lawn mowing business all through high school, all through college. And I wasn't particularly smart, but so I didn't get a scholarship for college, so I had to like pay for school somehow, and so mowed yards all through college. And then when I graduated college, I had to make a decision. Was I gonna stick with this lawn mowing business I had? You know, by that time I had maybe 3 or 4 employees. We were doing maybe a couple $100,000 a year in revenue,
Oh, wow.
and I thought, stick with this lawn mowing business or go into the job market. And I didn't really like want to be a lawn guy my whole life. But I just some quick back of the envelope math. I could see I could make more money in the lawn mowing business than I could than my contemporaries were, working jobs, with their degrees. And so I made a little business plan with what little I learned in college and in business school. And I thought if I can do this in 5 years, if I can get to the point where I'm not having to actually mow the yards, and
Mhm.
maybe I get 5 or 10 employees, then this would have been the right call. And so it took what I thought was going to take me 5, ended up taking like 2 or 3. And then as I was doing it, I was like, man, this could be my lane. This little lawn mowing business could be my lane. This could be the thing. Because I kind of had a chip on my shoulder. I wasn't like the cool guy in high school. I was kind of the dorky like guy that didn't get a date to prom, which was great because like I had this chip on my shoulder. And now I thought, okay, well, business is like this. Owning this business is the thing that could like take me to the next level in life. And so I thought, well, let's go see how far I can take it, and made another plan to what it would look like if I had 100 employees. And I thought, what if I could just build this out to like a big business? And over a 15-year period of time, little by little, I was able to do that. I built it into uh, one of the bigger landscaping companies in the state of Tennessee, around 150 employees and $10 million a year in revenue. And then and then it was acquired by a national company. You wouldn't think there's like national landscaping companies, but there are. There are huge
Mhm.
ones that have thousands of employees. And one of those big conglomerates bought my business
Wow.
in 2013. So 15 years. That's how I cut my teeth on entrepreneurship.
Wow. That is an amazing story that literally started with one lawn
One
and
lawn, one push
multiplied.
mower. Yeah,
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 yeah, and honestly, one classic dad move of
yeah.
being
One
like,
good
stop playing
parenting
video
decision.
games. Yeah, like
Yeah.
my dad was like, kicked me in the butt to go outside, and I begrudgingly did it, and then didn't want to do anything. But you took it, you get $20 in your pocket, and it's like that feels good. I mean, it honestly reminds me of like like a Mark Cuban kind of story, like that. He was like 14 and got his first couple bucks, and obviously that's a different level, but like that's how that entrepreneurship mindset works. It was something he
Exactly. I
saw.
love a lot of Mark Cuban stories. He tells them in such a practical way. Make no mistake, Mark Cuban is a brilliant guy. Like that guy's oven burns hotter than mine. He's a smart guy. And a lot of what he was able to do was because he was reading, you know, manuals on computer programming in the 80s. So he makes it look easy, his story, but man, I love a lot of Mark Cubanisms because he talks a lot about those types of like early days, just hustling sideways, literally like just trying to get something going.
Mhm.
I think is what holds a lot of people back. They're not willing to do the crappy businesses for a while to get some momentum going.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think that's something that, not only did you have the idea of like, hey, I can stick with this and make money through high school and have more money than my friends, and $20, like you said, in the mid 90s was way more than $20 now. But you also had the foresight to be like, well, what if I get somebody involved? And you know what I mean? Like by the time you were hitting college, you said you had 3 employees at this point. You're managing people, you're become the boss, and then you kind of just continue to scale up from there, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, doing it wrong. I had 3 employees doing it all wrong, but I was figuring out how to do it right, and making the mistakes, putting the reps in to then learn how to do it right. And yeah, $20. I remember uh I took a girl out on a date in 1997, and we both went out to dinner. I remember I remember this. Like, I remember thinking this. We went out to dinner, the works, appetizers, everything, and the bill was about what I made mowing 1 yard. So $25,
Oh,
so the whole bill, so
yeah.
yeah, times have changed. And interestingly enough, don't want to get on this tangent, but earnings haven't gone up that much. I was making $25, maybe $30 a lawn back then. And, now, like, running GreenPal, we do hundreds of thousands of transactions in the lawn mowing space. The average lawn mowing is about $35. And so now here we are 25 years later, that the cost of that service is about the same, which is very interesting. Now, a lot of it has to do with efficiencies. We've got better equipment, we've got better systems, processes, the industry does, but that's an interesting thing.
Yeah, for
How,
sure.
how does the conversation start with the company that purchased you in 2013? Like when did that start becoming a reality, and what did it feel like did you want to do that? Did you set out to have that happen, or did that just pop up organically?
Yeah, I was building that business for 15 years to run it forever.
Yeah.
I thought maybe I don't have kids, but maybe if I did that, I would hand it off to them, or I've got a couple nephews, maybe I was going to give it to them, or I was just going to run the hell out of it. And it was making, really, really good money, in the last 5 years of running that thing. So I had, what I thought were all the trappings of success. I built it by 30. One of my goals was I wanted to live in the same neighborhood that I was mowing yards in at 18. So I would, 18 or 20, I would cut lawns in these, like, the high end neighborhoods in town.
Mhm.
$1 million plus homes, which in outside of Nashville, Tennessee, is a mansion, and especially back then. And so my goal was, if I can just live in this neighborhood, that would be awesome. And I thought, I want to live in this neighborhood by the time I'm 30, and I was able to eke it out by 29. So here I am, 29 years old, the gardener, like, living next to the town's lawyers, uh, real estate developers, businessmen, doctors, and stuff. My neighbor was a heart surgeon, so that was cool. But I mean, like that goal was fun for like 6 months, and then the next thing I know, I've got this big ass house that I don't need, and it's a pain in the butt. And like they always say, like those things wear off, and it wore off for me. So that was like an evolution I went through, a mindset evolution I went through. And so running the business, I then began to learn about myself. The one thing that was keeping me going, keeping me growing, it was like I was evolving into a whole new person every 2 or 3 years. So like I said, I had 3 employees in college, and I was doing it all wrong. I was a terrible leader, terrible boss, and I had to learn how to do it. I was doing it the wrong way, and so I could learn how to do it the right way. And so I evolved into a decent leader and developed my own leadership style, developed my own management style. And so I liked that about the business. Well, by year 15, I guess you could say I had reached a plateau as far as personal development was concerned. I was no longer getting that fulfillment out of it. And that irked me. And I kind of like turned a blind eye to that feeling deep inside of myself for about 3 years, until, like a bad relationship almost, it just manifested into something ugly where I was miserable running that business. And so that's the reason why I explored selling it. And so, I thought, okay, well, I'm going to sell this business because I've been to these conferences and these guys are selling their businesses, and why can't I do that? Well, that was another, like, challenge in and of itself, because I guess my long-winded answer is, the way you run a business personally that you're going to run for a long period of time versus the way you run a business that you want to eventually sell and exit are tactically very different,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
strategically very different. And I didn't know that. And there's all sorts of things that you should do differently. Basically, to put it in a nutshell, any type of service-based business like that, you're going to get a multiple on the earnings, and so a multiple of the EBITDA. And so at the end of the day, what's the average that your business makes over a 5 year period of time? That times 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever is the amount you're going to get. Well, if you can afford to uh, delay, defer, or not have to incur an expense let's say a $10,000 expense,
Mhm.
that could be an $80,000 difference come sale time. And so,
Yeah.
the,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and so it's like literally 8 to 1, you know, or 5 to 1, depending on what the multiple is. And so there's all sorts of things like that. So, you know, like one thing that I would do is, you know, I wanted our shop to look nice because I felt like if our shop uh, looked like a Ferrari dealership, then our employees would take pride, would that would set the standard.
Mhm.
And we were in the business of beautification and property maintenance. Well, damn it, our shop needed to look like a like a class AAA office park,
Mhm.
Yeah.
because that's where it starts. That's the first place that they leave and come back. Well, it's really hard to measure how the ROI on how much you spent repainting the fence at the shop,
Yeah.
or you know, pressure or resealing the asphalt parking lot outside,
Right.
or you know, uh we had a dealership coating on the floor in the shop, you know, like a Ferrari. I saw a Ferrari dealership one time in Las Vegas, and ever since then I was like, it looked like a damn doctor's like operating room. Looked like a surgeon's operating room.
Yeah.
Now my place wasn't that spotless, but that was the standard I tried to set for it. Well, those types of things, and there's 100 or 1,000 of those types of things that I was doing in the business, are impossible to quantify down to the penny. And so when it
Mhm.
comes down to sale time, you know, you're kicking yourself in the butt because you could have avoided all of those expenses, and now it's cost you at sales time. So that was something that caught me off guard. And then also just like the sheer um way the business is built and architected, and the systems and the accounting and all of those things took me about 2 years to re-engineer.
Mhm.
And by the time I did all of those things, now the business was actually making more money.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, now I kind of didn't want to sell it anymore because I'd fallen in love with it almost, but fallen back in love with it. But by that point, you know, the ship had sailed, so it was time to see it through. And I'm glad I did, because
Mhm.
sometimes in business, you know, when you're first getting started, it's all about just hustling something from 0 to 1. But after you get some momentum going, and you have some optionality, a lot of times you have to like create space for things to happen. And so I needed to create space for me to do the next thing to continue to grow and evolve. And part of that was selling the traditional landscaping business, and then reinventing myself as a technology entrepreneur all over again, which sucked, but took 3 years, but I'm glad I did it. So that's exactly, looking back, what I
Yeah.
wanted, what I needed, and what I saw.
Okay. So something already immediately strikes me here. Um, I noticed, so you mentioned, yes, you want to have your facilities look great. Um, you even said when you were talking about like developing your first flyer that you went in on Microsoft and you made it and you had a nice printed out flyer that you send all around the neighborhood. I can tell already that you are somebody that thinks about all of the intangibles outside of the actual product itself. When it comes to mowing lawns, like, yeah, your lawn's going to look great, but also everything around it plays a factor. And you seem like somebody that picked up on that very early on. And even to this point, I think, does that help bring you eventually into the technology space? Because it seems like you're somebody that's very forward thinking with these sorts of things.
Yeah, you know, in the early days as a small business owner running a landscaping company, I I think I did that just out of uh, intuition. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just knew I needed to be better than my competition. So I
Mhm.
was studying my competition, and trying to just out hustle them, and trying to outserve my customers more than they were. You know, return phone calls faster, um, you know, being on time when we needed to be, having a nice brand, you know, good looking trucks and employees in uniforms and things like that. Trying to just like take it a notch up. I just did that because that's what I had to do to compete. I didn't really know the word customer experience, or customer journey, or you know, a customer centric a business philosophy,
Mhm.
or using customer feedback to drive business strategy and business decision making. Didn't know any of those things. Just kind of did it half-assed, intuitively, because that's what I had to do to compete. Now,
Mhm.
when I sold the business and started GreenPal, I was caught off guard by all kinds of things. One was, you know, building a new product. So there's a big difference between running a traditional blue collar business and then running a business where you're inventing something new from scratch that doesn't exist. Those are two vastly different things that I didn't know. I didn't know the difference. I just sold an 8-figure company. I thought I knew everything there was to know about company building, and then I was confronted with the reality that I didn't know jack about what I was about to embark on doing. That there was no roadmap, there was no way to like know how to do any of this stuff. I just kind of had to iterate and go from failure to failure, and just kind of plow through it with my co-founders and I. And so then I was exposed to like all of these philosophies and ideas and like frameworks on how to discover what works and how to discover how to build a product that people will pay for and keep paying for. And as I'm doing this, like I'm getting pissed off because I'm seeing all the ways I could have made like more money with less hassle and built a better business in my previous life, had I been exposed to these ways that technology products are built. And so I think that there's an opportunity for every small business owner. It doesn't matter if you run an auto shop, if you run a home remodeling business, if you run a hair salon, if you run a dry cleaning service, for you to think like 10% tech entrepreneur, man, you could probably eliminate 90% of the things you hate about running that business and put more money in the bottom line and make more money and run a better business and have happier employees with a lot less hassle if a lot of these kind of philosophies that tech builders use, if you leverage those. So anyway, like these are things that I was being exposed to and learning, and so building GreenPal began to do things like usability studies, and so the first version of the app, we released it, and we hustled up 100 people to try it, and we passed out door flyers again. So here I am, 20 years later, passing out door flyers. Just sold a company, but my co-founders and I are yet again passing out door flyers to try to get a couple hundred people to use this crappy app we had built. And at the time, we were reading a book called the Lean Startup by Eric Ries, and in that book, the author, in like 300 pages, and he's got 2 other books too, and his mentor Steve Blank has got 2 books also. And what they teach you in probably 3,000 pages of text is, if you're inventing a new product from scratch, you have to, what they say, get out of the building. And what they mean by that is get out from behind the laptop and go talk to the first handful of customers, literally face to face. Like the first 100 users, customers, sales need to be hand-to-hand combat. So we did that, begrudgingly did that. And so we would do usability tests, usability studies, like meet with them at their kitchen counter, Starbucks, whatever, and like watch them use the product. And you see, was firsthand when somebody does business with you, man, all the ways that like there's this weird gap between customer logic and founder logic. So the customer is looking at the problem from like one paradigm, and you as the founder are looking at it from another paradigm. And so the only way to close that gap is to literally like watch people use it, and then also do business with yourself, like signing up for your own product or service. So this is like a simple thing that I didn't do in my first business. Got all the way to $10 million and never did that. Never did business with myself. Should have, would have answered a lot of questions.
And you would have saved yourself some time on mowing the lawn.
Yeah. I mean, even if I had just secret shopped our company, and as simple as that sounds, I wonder how many small business owners, after they get to a certain point, still secret shop their own product or service.
Sure. So tell me a little bit about that transition into the tech space, because like you said, it goes from a blue collar business to, which you could have just maintained and been happy with your thing, but you were like, no, I'm going to scale this up too. Tell me about your previous experience. Did you know anything about building apps? Did you have to go find people? Like, what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, or that I was anticipating. And so I guess I was lucky in that way, because if I'd known how challenging it was going to be, I never would have done it. And so that was a good thing. But first thing my co-founders and I had to do was teach ourselves how to build software, how to code, how to design software, and how to market software. So these are things we had to like learn on the fly. We
Mhm.
tried to outsource all these things, and it was a total failure. We pulled together a couple of $100,000 of our own money, and so I didn't want to like. So it's not like I took all the proceeds from the first sale and plowed it into building GreenPal.
Mhm.
I because I didn't ever want to like pick up a weed eater ever again in my life. So I didn't want to go backwards. I kind of wanted to lock that down and like bank that win. And so I took all the money and I bought single family houses. And so I just put it all in real estate and turned it over to a management company. And that was did two things. It made it like very illiquid, so I couldn't go get that money if I was in a jam or if I wanted to use it to do something else. And also it made it a sure bet. You know, I was able to lock that in. And so I got very lucky there because 2013 was a great time to buy real estate, as it turns out.
Mhm.
So that was something that I did, and it made building GreenPal tough because we had very limited resources to start with. And so my two co-founders and I pulled together 150, $200,000, and this was like liquidated 401ks, credit card checks, you know, loans from mom and dad, things like that. And we wasted all of it on trying to pay a development agency to build what we thought GreenPal should be. And so these guys took like 9 months, built this thing, and we tried to get some people to use it, and it was a total dud. It just didn't work functionally. It was buggy, but also just like the user interface was not intuitive, and we didn't really know how it should be architected anyway. So probably half our fault anyway. So, you know, we were confronted with the reality that if we were going to be in the tech business, we were going to have to learn how to build software. Looking back, it's as foolish as trying to, you know, trying to start a band. Like you have an idea for a song, you just need to hire a musician. You know, it's kind of
Right.
like that. It's the same. I mean, sometimes founders, every now and then you hear a story like of a great success where the guy or gal never wrote a line of code. They just outsourced everything, but it's rare. And
Mhm.
so that's how we experienced it. So it took us 3 years to learn how to build software and learn distribution. You know, you learn how to get people to use the damn thing.
Mhm.
And so the first 5 years really were a slog.
And
Yeah.
so I'm curious, like we talk about resilience a lot, you know, and being determined. What you kind of just, and I mean, clearly you've reflected on it and moved on, but like that failure after the development company of 9 months, like that had to really hurt, like mentally and I obviously financially. Like what was that moment when you were like, holy shit, this is not it, and we need to like how did you find your way past that? And because I feel like a lot of people probably get broken from that, and you
Yeah,
clearly moved forward, you know, and made it work.
it sucked. I mean, not gonna lie. Now, couple of things. One is, you know, I was seduced by the ideal of the overnight success, and many new founders in the tech space are and still are. And what everybody learns is that there is no overnight success. It's always 7 to 10 years of,
Mhm.
even something that does look like an overnight success. You know, take Uber. Uber started in 2008. By 2013, they were conquering the world, and that
Mhm.
is the best example of an overnight success. What you don't understand is Travis Kalanick had already sold two companies before he started Uber. He
Yeah.
was already worth $20 million. His co-founder Garrett Camp founded a company called Stumble Upon and sold it to eBay. Like these guys already had big wins under their belt in the tech space, so they're starting on third base. Whereas my co-founders and I were starting in the dugout. Like we had
Yeah.
it was 3 years just to get to the plate, to get up
Yeah.
to bat. And so you don't know that until you go through it. So
Mhm.
the thing that I think the thing that got me through it, and maybe my co-founders as well, was and it managing your own personal psychology is a lot of times half the battle.
Mhm.
Is I had made a decision, particularly after I sold my first company, was that no matter what, I was always going to be working on my best idea. Just that was the default.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So like I wasn't just going to go sit on a beach. I tried that. I tried to go sit on a beach before I started GreenPal, and it lasted like a month. And so, you know, I knew I wasn't going to do that. Um, I knew, so by default, I was just, this was my best idea. I've had one good idea in 10 years, and this is it. And still
Your
is.
second one was coming on the podcast. That was your second.
There you go. Two good ideas.
Like two. You had two.
Two good ideas. And so there you have it. It was like, that was by default, that was my only play. And so it was just like, you know, just keep working on this thing. Let's celebrate the small wins. Let's read every damn book we can get our hands on. And let's learn from people who are doing it in similar spaces, and doing it with zeros on the end, and try to apply what they're doing. And none of it was fun. I mean, literally none of it was fun. But looking back, now a decade in, we're nationwide, United States, 300,000 people using this thing, $30 million a year in revenue, and it's still day one. Like we're just a drop in the bucket in the industry. And what a great endeavor to take on. It's been now it is fun, and I'm glad we didn't give up, but it was not fun back then.
Yeah, sure. It's important to like reflect on the journey, and to your point, I think a lot of people just assume that things are overnight. It's like, oh, that worked out, like they're in the news now, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of failure to get to that point, and you have to make a commitment to learning from it all. And I feel like you did that really well. And it's like, what can I take away from this for the next step? And then in the meantime, you had a really big success, and then had like a subjective failure, if you will, that you didn't expect, and you're like, okay, I'm going to pick this up and move on, and it's worked out. So I think it's important to recognize like that's a significant path, and there's some roadblocks in it, right? And you keep going, and you're going to come to what you want to get if you have passion for it. And I think you already sort of decided in your mind you're going to have that focus and move it forward, which is really cool. So that's I think that's an atypical journey, and I think it's really critical to have that mindset throughout the whole thing.
For sure. Well, I appreciate that, and I hope, what I hope anybody that listens to any interview with me takes away is, if that guy can do it, I can too. Because there's nothing special about my co-founders and I. We just stuck with it, and it's important for people to hear the stories of the early days of a lot of these companies. The people that the people that started Instacart, which is now, I think, their latest round of funding was a $40 billion company. Those guys started in 2012, and the way they got started, they went to the local Publix or Kroger or whatever they had there in San Francisco, and they bought one of every single item in the whole store, and the three of them shared a 600 square foot apartment that they worked out of, and they like inventoried every single thing, took it back to their apartment, and took pictures of every single item, and put all of that on a website. So it's like, you got to be willing to like manually crank the first couple of levels of the game, like that's just what it takes. And you don't want to be cranking for 5 years, but like when you're first getting started, that's what it takes.
Yeah.
For sure. The other one that comes to mind too is obviously Amazon was a garage project selling books, and
exactly.
And Amazon. So
is that the rainforest? What are you referring to when you say Amazon?
Yeah, it's just a small little tech startup. Don't worry.
I hope they do well. Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, I think they're gonna go to the moon and stuff. Well, I like the curiousness of that too, and I think that that's something that you guys had, is not only did you say, okay, I'm gonna learn how to code, but then like you learned, okay, now I have to develop a user experience. And now I have to develop like, okay, this thing is clunky. You never really settled for it's an app, and then tried to market that as it's an app. Like you're still working on like perfecting everything about it. Tell us kind of, for those that kind of haven't had a chance to look it up yet, what GreenPal, how it kind of works, and what the user experience really is.
Yeah. So normally, if you have a yard, you want to get somebody to go mow it for you. You wouldn't think this would be a hard problem to solve, but it actually is. You have to maybe ask friends and family for recommendations. Maybe you go to Craigslist, maybe you go to Facebook, maybe you just Google it, and you got to start dialing for dollars. You got to like poll all of these service providers, and usually like you'll just hire the first person that gets back to you and gives you a reasonable quote and hope they show up, and you don't really know if they're any good or not. And you come to find out maybe they were, maybe they weren't. And then usually like half the time they end up ghosting you. And like, there's all this, like, in 2013, 2023, it should be like easier to get this done than it is. And so that's what we set out to solve. Like, how do you just make it to where you can push a button, you get quotes, and you can hire them, and they come out and take care of the service. And as it turns out, like, there's a million things that can go wrong between those two endpoints. And so for a decade, we've been solving every one of those things. And so as a homeowner now, if you live in any of the cities that we offer service, you can sign up, pop your address in, you get 5 quotes back within a couple of minutes. You read reviews that other people that have used it have said about these services. You look at their pricing, and you can pick it and hire the one you want for the day you want. They come out, service the property, you get pictures of the work when it's done, and then it's billed to your card, and then you push a button and set it for the whole season. So that's for the consumer. For the vendor, like, we give the homeowner a high five, but we really have to go deep into the life of the vendor and improve their livelihood and give them kind of an operating system to run their whole business. Otherwise, we have no product for the consumer. And so we learned that early on, was that we kind of have to go like a mile deep into the into the lawn care services daily life, everything from how they get new business to how they route it, how they get paid, to how they follow up after the job is done, to how they reactivate cold customers, to how they add on other services, like end to end, one operating system for them to run their whole business. It took us a long time to develop it, but little by little, we've built that to where now these service providers can make more money with less headache on GreenPal than they can off GreenPal. So now they're kind of modulated and on the shelf, so then consumers can hire them off the shelf, so to speak.
Sure. Is this something that, potentially people could do as their side hustle too? Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, could you be a GreenPal lawnmower, same way as you could be an Uber driver or Airbnb renter or whatever?
Absolutely. You can make a lot more money mowing lawns on GreenPal than you can in most of any of those other gig economy vocations. We have vendors that make $100 an hour mowing yards. And so if you wanted to be in the lawn mowing business, typically there's startup costs. There's you got to get a business license. You got to do all these things. Well, we try to lower the barrier to that, to where you could just do it part-time, mow 3 or 4 yards a week if you wanted to, put an extra couple $100 in your pocket. And we have a lot of vendors that make money that way. But we also have many vendors doing over $1 million a year on the platform. So we have both, and it's our job to tee up that range of options for a consumer, because maybe somebody wants the solopreneur, maybe somebody wants the bigger company, maybe somebody just wants it knocked down, once every couple of weeks. Maybe it's a rental property. Maybe somebody wants a private gardener, that wants that higher end service. It's our job to offer those options so the consumer can get what they want.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
I had a rental when I first moved out of after college, and we mowed our own lawn. And there was one time that I hired a service because I was just too busy with something else that I couldn't get it done. And if I had something like this, I think I would definitely be the guy, hiring out. I would be your ideal customer to be like, yes, give me, somebody here, and I'll charge it to the landlord or something like that. But yeah, I would be.
I think it's day one of people, pushing a button on their phone and expecting magic to happen.
Yeah.
Like more and more, everything is getting solved by these experiences. 10 years ago, you wouldn't have ordered DoorDash, you wouldn't have ordered Instacart. You still would have done those things the hard way. And we're kind of in terms of home services getting online, we're kind of in 2008 where food delivery was. In 2008 or 9 or 10, if you wanted to get food delivery, you might have used Grubhub, but you still would have done it the old way. That's kind of where the industry is for home services. Is most of it's happening offline. It's just now starting to come online.
Yeah. And to that point, I think a lot of people now think only in those terms of the now for services like that. They only think of like a Uber Eats or whatever, and they tend to not look back at that.
Right.
I still wonder, I'm in awe of like, I pressed the button and the Uber guy showed up with food, or, I pushed a button and a car pulled up, there was never a time where that was even a thought.
Right.
So,
And
I can just take the scooter that's laying here on the sidewalk and drive this thing somewhere. You know what I mean? Like
you mentioned Bezos earlier, and how Amazon started in a garage, and I think still to this day they have their desks or doors bought from Home Depot maybe, and so that's a thing, right? And so that hustle culture. One of my favorite like quotes on this type of stuff is a Bezos quote, and he says the thing that I love the most about the customer is that they are divinely discontent. And so what he means by that is like to your point, today's like thing, push a button and a car magically appears is like, yesterday's innovation is today's old news.
Mhm.
And that's the way it is. And so that's why you always got to be, innovating, getting better and better and better.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, it helps us because consumers want this type of solution to a problem. But on the other
Right.
hand, it's hard because they expect Uber and Amazon magic, and so there isn't like guys riding around Milwaukee with a truck and trailer and a lawnmower running on the trailer, just riding around like going to be there in 5 minutes. Like, no, I mean, if you hire somebody today, maybe this afternoon or in the morning. So we have to it's like a delicate like balance between Uber experience, but not 3 minutes like Uber.
Yeah. Oh no, I've traveled with people where if the Uber isn't there on time, you start to see them doing this and like checking the
What's
phone.
going on? Yeah.
What license are we looking for? All that. And
Yeah,
I would just want to be like, there was a time where we would have had to call a taxi.
Cabs here.
Yeah. Is there any sort of hurdles with this, the initial experience that of building this app and deploying people to, go out and mow other, strangers really to go mow lawns? Was there anything that you weren't expecting? Like, is there I would assume there has to be like some crazy insurance hurdle or something like that wasn't, part of the plan originally?
All sorts of things. Here I am. I'm starting the business with 15 years of industry experience. I know everything there is to know. And I quickly was confronted with, man, I mean, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, particularly because all the reasons why it sucks to hire a landscaping service or just somebody to cut the grass, all the reasons why it sucks are now my problem. I have to solve every one of those.
True.
Forgot it was on the list. Fence gate too small. Can't fit his mower in. His helper got a DUI last night, so he's running behind. Kid was sick, so he had to take care of his kid. He didn't mow yards that day. Equipment got stolen. Equipment broke down. He didn't finish his yards from yesterday, and it rained this morning, and so now like all of these like things that can go wrong are now my problem, and so I have to solve them. And one of the things that really caught me off guard, I thought that from a contractor perspective, you are always competing with other contractors, and so you're looking at the industry from this paradigm of it's piranhas and it's dog eat dog and it's a race to the bottom and all consumers care about is price. And what I learned after about a year of trying to build this marketplace was that no, consumers don't really care that much about the price. They'll pay a fair price. They just want the damn yard mowed on the day it's supposed to be.
Right.
And as simple as that is, I then like the problem my app and my platform and my marketplace is solving is just making sure that the service provider shows up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's it. Making sure the lawn guy shows up every Thursday is the biggest problem we've had to figure out how to solve in 10 years. Now we're still making it better and better and better. It used to happen about 20% of the time. Now it happens 98% of the time. We're still trying to solve the other 2%.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's funny. The things, the assumptions you bring to the starting block are usually wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's amazing to see where this is going. Two questions real quick before we kind of wrap things up here is one, I have to ask, where do you want to take this? Because it's already seems like it's at an impressive point, but where, how big do you want to scale this sort of thing? And what does that look like for you?
when I started it and I sold my last company and started this 10 years ago, I made I guess, two promises to myself. One, I was always going to be working on my best idea, and two, I was going to have fun doing it. So there's been 100-hour weeks running this business, but I haven't worked a day in 10 years because it's always been just what I wanted to do. It was always, I've always been curious by it. I've always wanted to learn how to figure out to solve the problems posed by the platform. And so that's been fun. It still is fun. I'm going to keep doing it until I'm not having fun doing it. Or I suck at it. And if I suck at it, I'm not going to have fun at it. So that's like, that's how long I'm going to keep going with it. And what does that look like? We need to be 1 million people using it and, $100 million a year in revenue. And we want to get there within 3 years. So that's what we're driving towards now. I don't know if we're going to make it or not, but just trying to make it better and better and better, faster, quicker, smoother, more efficient, more reliable, more convenient for people to get this chore done.
Awesome.
And then the second one I have to ask is a little bit more of a fun one because I'm a music guy. You grew up in Nashville. You said you were mowing, multi-million-dollar homes and things like that. Did you ever get to meet any country stars from the mowing the lawn business?
Well, living in Nashville, you see them running around all the time. I used to mow the yard, not his yard, but the one next to it, for a guy named Chad Brock back about 20 years ago. He had a song called Lightning Does the Work. And he was famous back then. And I used to think that guy was the SHIT. But that was the only guy I got to meet, out here mowing yards.
That counts. That's more than zero.
This has been really awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. If people want to find GreenPal and connect with you, where are the places to go ahead and do that at?
Yeah, greenpal.com, or just download it in the app store. And anybody want to hit me up, Instagram is the best place to find me, Bryan M. Clayton.
There we go. Perfect. I'm opening the app right now as we speak. I just downloaded. So I'm going to go get it. So
rock and roll.
I'll be ready.
Do the lawn. I have a nice lawnmower. I don't want to do the lawn. I'm going to take care of it. Like this is going to be, I'm a new user now because of this.
Life is too short. To mow the grass.
Amen to that.
Well, thank you so much. And then thank you guys for listening as well. If you're listening for the first time, hello, welcome. You can subscribe to this podcast wherever you get it. If you're listening for the 62nd time, thank you. And we appreciate that as well. We are Hustling Sideways on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter. We're on TikTok. We're on YouTube. So wherever you want to follow us, you can follow us. If you want to be on this podcast, you can send us an email. It's hustlingsideways@gmail.com. And Jim,
keep on hustling.
We'll see you next week.